So hello and welcome to this webinar on APQR on demand, how Agentic AI turns months of work in 2 minutes. For those who don't know me yet, I'm Jan Kugel, the Managing Director at Qualistory, and I will be your host for this session. For those who just joined us for the first time, you should know that at Qualistory we are dedicated to empowering professionals in a regulated industry to stay current with the latest trends through engaging webinars. And we provide a stage for top industry experts and leaders to share practical insights and help you stay compliant and efficient. And today we will be talking about annual product quality reviews, which often demand months of manual work, gathering data, compiling spreadsheets, and formatting reports. And in this webinar, we'll explore how Agentic AI is transforming this process and turning that to what's used to take months into actually minutes. And on this note, I want to say big thanks to our event partner, Azon, and they're a pioneer in intelligent GXP manufacturing. They help pharmaceutical companies eliminate paper, boost yields, cut deviations, and ensure quality with AI-powered solutions delivered in just a few weeks. And we are joined today by some outstanding speakers from Azon. So we have Tony Manzano, the co-founder and chief scientific officer. He's a pharmaceutical industry leader and AI pioneer driving innovation in quality and manufacturing operations. And joining him is Kevin Bogovan. He's the VP of AI Consulting Services, and he's a specialist in AI-driven solutions that accelerate pharmaceutical operations. So on this note, let's get started. Tony, the stage is yours.
Thank you, Jan, and thank you to all the audience for having us here and also for attending this webinar that we expect that it could be fruitful for you. So let me start first with maybe a thought leadership thoughts about why and which kind of things we are going to show today. Besides the agenda, it's important to mention that this webinar is part of a series where the first webinar, that was the first one in the series, was dedicated to how to use Agentic AI for supporting batch release. Now, with this webinar based on the product quality review or the annual review, we want also to provide more use cases, more real use cases about how to use Agentic AI in combination with the different kind of AI models, AI systems that we can use nowadays, but specifically for a specific purpose, product quality review. Well, based on that, just knowing that this is part of this series, I would like to share with you that probably you already know that AI is not new. AI is a very old discipline that was created in the computer division on the academic research. So actually, artificial intelligence was announced by the first time in 1956. So we're talking about a lot of years ago, 70 years ago. And but it's true that although we have experimented different hypes and waves along the time, nowadays we are living probably this Moore's law. I don't know if you're familiar with the Moore's law. The Moore's law is an exponential shape that practically all of the technology advancements and breakthroughs has experimented since the beginning. And Moore's, that created this law, he detected or he identified that, for example, the number of transistors and the number of chips contained in the computers along the time, since the 76 till 2000 something, they were following an exponential shape. The same shape, this same exponential behavior can be identified also in the bandwidth, in the price of cloud technology, in the price of storage, the level of accessibility to the storage. So we can identify this exponential law in plenty of different dimensions in the technology field. Well, if you remember, we were talking some years ago about machine learning, and once the pharmaceutical industry and the rest of the industries and sectors, they were used to understand what really AI means in terms of machine learning, about neural networks, how to work with classical algorithms like k-means in order to create clusters, how to predict something using random forests, how to detect anomalies using isolation forests. All these things we were adopting quickly, but before to be confident with this, let me say, mathematical discipline, we were completely overloaded with a new kind of AI, and LLMs were coming, and we were forced to adopt this kind of new AI systems. And nowadays, everyone is working with LLMs. No one can live without LLMs. And once we were used to work with LLMs, or before we were used and we were able to adjust our lives and our systems and our good practices to LLMs, we were again overloaded with a new kind of AI systems. So we were governed and we were invited by agentic systems that were making their own decisions. They were proactive when we were interacting with them. So they were acting they were playing the role of humans in this kind of new ecosystem. So as you see, we are part of this evolution. I'm so sorry, we cannot avoid that. So we are humans and we are part of the history. And we have to be proud because now we are living this very excited moment in the history. We are part of the evolution, and this evolution is how we are transforming these human capabilities, these cognitive human capabilities, into robotics. This is what this fast evolution on the AI systems are now are around everywhere. No, so this is the reality that we cannot avoid. Well, after this just explanation about why we are now trying to explain this agentic AI approach, today the idea is, first of all, to describe the reality in terms of this annual product quality review concept, which is the paradox that we want to solve, which is the real cost of the manual activities around preparation for the annual product quality review, and finally how agentic AI can bring value from a compliance perspective. So we will have a very short live demo that Kevin will lead in order to show you that could be possible, that is feasible, and this is a reality nowadays. Remember, we're part of this exponential growth that is called Moore's law. We cannot avoid it, so we have to evolve with the evolution. So we're part of the evolution. Finally, the idea is to show you that at the end, patients must they must get benefit of this effort. So the use of agentic AI or the use of AI is not because it's fashion or it's trending on topic. The goal is to improve the life of our patients. Okay. Kevin, please just chime in when you think, you consider. So it's just making the introduction. So we will go now deeply on the details and let's go. Good. So first of all, let me explain you that probably you already know, you are aware about that the annual product quality review is a real necessity and is a real requirement coming from regulations. The main aiming or the main goal to prepare these reports was because the regulations were requesting this continuous improvement. Continuous improvement is part of this evolution. So we have to evolve, we have to continuously ensure that our products are better and better. But this is not because, we have to improve for any specific reason. It's because everything is changing continuously. So technology is changing, raw materials are changing. So we cannot use the same recipes to produce, I don't know, whatever a drug we're doing with the same processes that we prepared or we submitted in the dossier, I don't know, 20 years ago. The reason is because everything is changing. So the equipment, the monitoring, the systems, the raw material, the shifts, the knowledge of the shifts, even the rooms where we are acting, everything is continuously changing. So that requires that we also adapt our processes based on this continuous improvement. And this is the main regulatory aiming. So we have to be always better, thinking always in our patients. So as the complexity is increasing and these geopolitical systems that we are living nowadays are more complex, we have to guarantee that our patients are always saved. Well, this is the purpose. The industry reality is another thing. I don't know if you have the same feeling, but in all the projects where we are involved, the reality is that the pharmaceutical industry today are managing this product quality review maybe like a bureaucratic process rather than a real continuous improvement. And there are many reasons for that. And we will try to go deeply in order to explain how, finally, how Agentic AI can supply these efforts that we cannot afford today because, well, reasons that we will explain. So the idea nowadays is, well, let's try to change these months of work that we need in order to prepare this annual product quality review for every single product that we produce in our sites, just in a short time in order to have real improvement, real process improvement in the analysis of our operations. This is the goal. From a regulatory perspective, let me share with you that this annual product review, the APR as we call in the US, was referenced and was requested in the 70s. So it's something that is really old. So this requirement is coming from the 70s, and it's something that we are pursuing since the beginning and has been reinforced by many guidelines. For example, the ICHQA that probably you already know very well, that was released in 2006. The ICHQA was promoting the knowledge and the deep knowledge on processes and operations, because if you know very well your process and you know very well your product, everything that is always going together will end up in a good success for the patients. So ICHQ8 was another side, another view of the same thing. We need to be expert in our processes. We cannot separate quality from manufacturing. Both things are part of the same coin. That was the vision, no? So since the 70s, FDA is promoting and requesting this annual product review. In the European good manufacturing practices, we have also the same call in 2006 in the chapter 1 for the product quality review. But I would like to highlight maybe something that you already know, but it's important to share here, is the ICHQ7. The ICHQ7 that was specifically published for active principal ingredients. They describe very well the main purposes and the main aims for lead this product quality review. And they explain that in the ICHQ7 that is specifically for API, for active principal ingredients, but can be applied for everything. The idea is that they were recommending this product review in a regular base in order to have always a review of all the critical in-process control systems. So all the CPPs, all the CQAs, we have to review all the batches that fail. We have to review all the critical deviations and non-conformities. We have to review all the changes that we have carried out in order to be aware about the impact in our operations. We have to review all the results and stability processes. So we have to review at the end the combination of our processes, operations, and products. This is the summary. And I like the idea of the ICHQ7 that this review is not only for these failures, also in order to get more knowledge about what we are doing. So the idea is to don't review only those things that they went wrong. The idea is to review everything in order to improve the process. This is a very good challenge. And this is the reality, and this is the intention of the product quality review, to continuously improve our processes. Well, the reality. Let us share with you this reality worldwide. So how much cost is derivated from this requirement about the product quality review? Well, Actually, we should do that for every single medicinal product per year. And the idea is that, well, if you count the number of products that we are producing per company, we're talking about dozens of, to hundreds of products annually. So that means that we have to prepare this documentation around thousands of annual product quality review worldwide. So of course, this is a huge amount of work that all of us, all the pharmaceutical companies, we are doing because it's a request, it's a requirement. Well, we will try to measure the efforts that this kind of traditional annual product quality reviews they are taking nowadays. And we were measuring based on real experiences that at least we need from to 70 till 120 hours of manual effort per product in terms only to collect data, only for data collection. So to be honest, once we are managing all this information and we are identifying all the data sources, the electronic batch record, the MES, the LIMS, the warehouse management system, where we are, the spreadsheet that we have on the table, all these data sources that we are transforming the production and all the systems that they are involved in the production into data, we need to process this data in order to transform this data into the analysis, the assessment that we have to provide in terms of a report that we have to deliver to the inspections, to the regulators. Well, the idea is that we need, in average, more or less 3 months after their period has been ended up in order to create this documentation. 3 months per system. Well, and before to go beyond, we would like to see if you share with us the same feeling. So we would like to share with you, or we would like to share with all the audience, no, how long does typically take your team to complete one annual product quality review for a product? So I think that it would be very good to have your opinion, to share with all the audience, to start with the alignment. So please, if you can take your time based on the, well, on this full question. A day, I see a day.
Yes, so the poll is running.
Yes.
We'll give it, we have already over one, so we have right now 100 results. We'll wait a bit more
Okay.
and we'll see.
And it is
Yeah.
important to note it's really tough to measure this one too because you're involving so many different teams sometimes. I've seen, methods where everything's compiled into one master document, but then different owners own each different tab. So some companies, I think it's even hard to get the full estimate without analyzing each silo as well.
Mhm. Yes. And we have always the priorities. So quality versus manufacturing versus processes versus regulatory affairs. So Kevin,
Mhm.
this is the results. What do you think in regard of your experience?
It definitely aligns. So at about more than 50% for 1 month or more. And I can definitely see 11% less than 1 week. That's very impressive. I'd be
Yeah.
curious to know if how what level of systems or what level of digital maturity the less than 1 week group is at.
Mhm. Actually, I think that we have to congratulate all those audience that they are spending less than 1 week because we have to clap. You are the example to follow. So congratulations, because well, we're suffering a lot with different companies in order to make shorter the time. And as Kevin said, it's always a fight. No, it's a trade-off between how much effort we have to ask to the IT team in order to collect the data coming from the different systems, filtering, preparing the raw data, cleaning the data, and finally analyzing the data. No? So our experience, as we said in the previous slide, is very well aligned with with the majority of the audience. So we were saying, sorry, it's in the middle in my. So we were saying that must typically be finalized within 3 months. That was our experience, no? And it's very well aligned with the audience. Again, congratulations for those teams that they are working in a shorter time. This is very good. Well, this is our experience. Do you want to comment that, Kevin? Because I think that you're suffering a lot
Yeah.
in this kind
No,
of.
it certainly aligns. Most of what I've seen is on this data acquisition. I've seen many, we call them master files. I'm sure many of you are familiar with those. You have an Excel file that has 50 tabs, and you are copying and pasting data from different systems into the Excel file, and then you have your master Word document template that represents your PQR. And ideally, that template is somewhat scalable, and it's something you can apply to multiple products, which we'll touch on later. But it's a lot of translating to one template, getting it from different people, then distilling that information down, copying and pasting it into the Word document, and then having final review and restructuring within the Word document to match your final template. So it's a lot of kind of acquiring the data, then manually contextualizing it, and then doing that shift into your proper templatized structure. So very aligned. Yep.
Yeah, actually, I would like to highlight something. Uh, Kevin, you are also leading different AI projects. And I think that there's a very nice similarity between this graphic and the real work that we are doing in projects. Because when we do AI in pharma, the reality is that AI is just the last part of the project. Actually, collecting data, preparing data, making data cleanup, it takes the 80% of the time in order to be ready to apply AI. So it's like the people that is with the hoodie in the dark rooms typing and making their magics. So they are spending this 80% of the time preparing the data in order to have this data reliable. And only the 20% of the time that we want to dedicate is, or we can dedicate is for AI. But we need to prepare this reliable foundation of data.
Mhm. And automating that 80%. So not only is it 80% cleaning, and this is just for a retrospective report. You want to be able to allocate that 80% in data acquisition and the 80% in cleansing to prepare your data for AI. Imagine instead of you're looking retrospective, wow, 11 months ago we had a deviation that cost, $500,000, when 2 weeks before, if you had the proper data foundation, the proper contextualized data, you could have maybe predicted that deviation. So I think that's also a very important message here. It's not just automating your reports, it's automating a methodology that can help you with preventative and predictive action. So it's kind of taking that APQR to the next level and making it not just annual retrospective, but Tony, maybe the name should be that's the annual requirement, but it should be like a CPQR. It should be a continuous product quality report because it can be with the right
I like the
foundation.
idea. I like the idea. Actually, I think that your explanation is answering the question coming from Julia Sauer. She is asking for what are the best practice for implementing data governance and metadata management in our quality review. How do you proceed with agentic AI if the master batch records are paper-based? So as Kevin mentioned, before to go to agentic AI or AI systems, remember you have to rely on the data. Data is everything. So if the data is not reliable or you cannot trust in a blind way on the data, we cannot build validated product quality reviews. So if you have everything in paper, the idea is that you digitalize first these paper rules or the rules that you are embedding in your SOPs, that at the end they will transform into the template or the paper-based thing that you are using. You'd have to transform these rules that you are following by hand into digital rules in order to automatize. So Kevin touched the critical topic. We need to automatize. Remember that in this evolution that we're experimenting nowadays, We were talking about that at the beginning. In this evolution that we're part of, we need to maximize, we need to augment human capabilities, and we have to delegate our more, let me say, systematic or more automatic capabilities into AI, because this is the final purpose of robots. We don't want to do the same thing 100 times per day. We're very good thinking, we are very good finding things, we are very good with intuition, we are very good making connection between dots. But humans, we are very bad doing the same thing hundreds of times. So as much digital systems, as many digital systems we have, as many automations do we have in the process, the better. As Kevin mentioned, it's the key. There is no secret. Good. So do you want to go also with this slide, because it's very related with the same concept? So
Sure thing, Tony. Yeah, I think the structuring and documentation creation phase is interesting because there's different departments, obviously, that you had to create your template. And what we've seen is sometimes different organizations, as you grow, you maybe are acquiring different sites, absorbing different departments. So we start to see variability in these templates as well. So I think that's an important piece to highlight, is on that 20% of the effort is not only structuring and document creation, it's also depends on your organizational maturity. Like, where are you relative to other sites? What level of corporate level standardization is being imposed upon you, and how do you adapt to that? So I also think that's an important consideration. I just wanted to highlight out on here, Tony.
mhm. That's true. That's true. Uh, Actually, once you have, because you already have validated your source of data, your source of truth, that today are the different systems that are in place along the different operations, like the laboratory information management system, the ERP, the historians, the warehouse management system, the building management system. All your data sources, they have already been validated. So this data acquisition phase, it's crucial in order to break the silos. So the goal is to don't create these islands of data. If you have that, you are suffering a lot, and you are losing the opportunity to transform your most valuable asset, the data, into knowledge. So this is the main goal. So if you are able to, based on the validation data sources, connect all of them, integrate all of them, and just prepare the automation in order to make click and collect the data, this is, of course, this is the key. And this is not for free. You have to invest time. But this is the price that we have to pay. We have to dedicate efforts in order to automatize our process, to digitalize our process. Otherwise, we cannot get the vast of the evolution. Remember this Moore's law that we were talking at the beginning. So we are already in this wave of adoption of AI everywhere. We cannot say no. The bus is moving on, and we have to get it. So the only way that we have nowadays is to evolve together and to dedicate these efforts in order to improve, and also to establish all the mechanisms for this digitalization. Once you have that, believe me, the next step is very easy. But not only the product quality review, you can transform, or you will transform, all your data into knowledge. So remember, the 80% of the time that you will dedicate in your project has to be dedicated in order to have certainty on the data, reliability on your data, in order to transform this data into information. Information would be graphics, tables, mechanisms that you can consume. And finally, you have to transform information into knowledge. The product quality review is a very good example of knowledge. You are extracting from the information that you are collecting from your data, you are extracting this process knowledge in order to improve continuously your process. But believe me, it's worth it. But we need to invest this 80% of the time, or 80% of the effort, in order to digitalize. Is the reality. Otherwise, we will do the same. We will dedicate this 80% of the time every year. And this is not affordable because we're not good as humans. We're not good doing the same thing a lot of times. So we're very good with these augmented capabilities that we have. Well, I think that in the previous question, we had also this comment, how we can create this metadata, how we can manage this data contextualization in order to bring value. No? This is one of these the secrets. So we have a lake, we have an ocean, plenty of data, and this data is coming from different sources at the same time. So the idea is that this information coming from quality control, they all of them they are related with my current batch. But how I can separate or how I can identify that my data coming from this certificate of analysis is linked to this batch. And even more, how we can link that the calibration that I did of this equipment was related with my current batch, or how I can relate the other parallel activities like, for example, line clearance, batch changeover, all these kind of things that we are doing around the production must be always linked to the batches that we are analyzing. All of them, they are part of the batches. Even more, when you have the ability to implement AI, you will see that your previous batch process probably is conditioning in some way the evolution of your current batch. Maybe because the time of functioning of your machine, the maintenance that your filling line requires because the previous batch was very long. All these kind of things happen when you have transformed your data into this kind of information. And in this case, we're talking about this data contextualization. In this case, we have to think on batch. Batch is our main contextualization concept. So everything must be turned around the concept of batch. So when you are doing this line clearance, you have to point out to the previous and the next batch. When you are doing this batch changeover, you have to point to the previous and the next batch. When you are making or you are collecting the environmental conditions like temperature in the room, humidity in the room, the idea or the ideal situation is that you include in your metadata that these environmental conditions are related to your current batch. Remember, it's so crucial that your data is fully contextualized in terms of batch. Otherwise, you will be always segmented. You always won't be 100% reliable on all the available data. It's very important, again, to recall that we are transforming, or the goal is to transform data into information, information into knowledge. So the only way to do that is to add more value in the raw data that we are collecting. And as the industry and as our manufacturing industry is fully focused in and fully batch oriented, we have to contextualize everything around this batch concept.
And Tony, just to give some more practical real world examples that we've seen is sometimes it's not there are different scenarios, that corner cases, if you will, where you think everything is contextualized properly or you have all the proper metadata, but maybe as you're evolving, you can't properly link your QMS to a batch phase, and you can't actually link a deviation to that batch programmatically. So there sometimes you have to implement solutions in an efficient, optimal way. So we have implemented solutions where, it is on the quality person to go through the human in the loop and actually vet, filter to a time range of batches, like Tony said. Maybe you have the batch start and end, and at least you can reduce the world of deviations associated with the batch. But then for the PQR, give the user the ability to select which quality events they want to associate with the batch and provide the proper justification. We've also seen systems where customer complaints in a QMS, in a master control system, for some reason the site was not a required field. So we had to, provide the user with that ability to review the customer complaints and then actually contextualize which site it goes with, and then we can inform which batch. So there are sometimes intermediary kind of stepping stones you have to build in order to get to your fully streamlined automated solution.
Good point. Good point. Actually, we have a very good question now in the panel from Jakub. He says, is there any standard way for orchestration data from various data sources? Is there any golden standard? Well, let me share with you that in the industry, we have already standards in order to tag, in order to label and create contextualization around this batch concept. So these standards are called ISA 88 for batch approach and ISA 95 for sites distributions like site unit operation unit procedure. So ISA 95 and ISA 88 both are the best standards for contextualize in terms of labeling. But it's very important that the full company is aligned with the same criteria. And let me add another example. Kevin, I think that the examples that you are always putting are really good. So let me add another one. Imagine that you have in your company different departments where you are making filling, you're working with filling lines. You have, for example, for liquids, and you have another filling lines for aerosols or whatever. Imagine that you are in the filling line and you have to establish, based on this metadata, when the batch starts and when the batch ends. And you have, these vials coming from the filling system, and these vials are entering in the packaging line. Well, from your perspective, when the batch starts, when the first vial is entering the line, or when the first final vial that is already packaged is going out from the line. Sometimes we are experimenting different criteria in the same company. So this kind of standardization must start inside the company. So all those criteria can help you in order to implement this metadata and this contextualization in a very good way inside the company. So first of all, please try to unify and standardize criteria. For example, this is a very good example for you, which when the batch starts in a filling line process, if it is when the first unit is entering or when the first final unit that is already packaged is exiting from the site. This criteria can help you in order to establish when is the timestamp to define when the batch starts. Okay, so just as examples. Good. So we arrive now to the second poll question, and we will need again your help in order to create awareness about the situation. So here the question is, what is the biggest time sink in your current annual product quality review process? Where are you investing more time? In our experience, we are dedicating the 80% of the time just collecting and preparing data. And for you? Meanwhile, let me answer that it's not the ISO standards, it's ISA. ISA 88 and ISA 95. I'm writing now in the chat. Okay, so we would like to know, where are you dedicating more time?
Right, so the poll is running. The answers keep coming in, and we'll give it another 20, 30 seconds.
It would be a surprise if we can measure the 80% of the time just collecting data. That is an experience.
Okay, I think most of the answers come in. Okay, we're still going strong. Okay, I think we got this. So let's see the results.
Okay. So
Not
results.
not surprising.
Wow, wow,
We
wow.
almost got to the 80%, Tony. It was 65% collecting.
Yeah, so you're very good. So we have a very amazing audience now today.
Hmm.
Good, good. So it seems that our 80% of experience in the time that we have to dedicate is shrink to 65% along the audience. So it's very, very good, believe me. Congratulations to all the teams. In terms of formatting and writing the final report, 18%, analyzing the data, 14%, and finally getting reviews and approvals from stakeholders, 3%. So as always, it's very similar to the real life that we are now experimenting, applying AI mechanisms to get knowledge from data. The efforts and dedications that we need in order to extract knowledge from the information is the shorter time, around 14%. That is precisely what you are saying. We have to dedicate a lot of time just collecting data. So believe me, when in pharma we say, oh, we cannot apply AI for whatever reason, the reality is because we need to have this kind of layer of foundation on this data extraction and data access. So your results are very transparent, and they are the reflection of the reality. So it's good that you share that with us because it's supporting also our experience. We have to dedicate a lot of effort at the beginning in order to digitalize and in order to extract and collect the information coming from the different data sources. So it's good. It's good. Any comment, Kevin?
I think you pretty well covered it. Um, so yeah, I think we can move on.
Good. Thank you. Thank you to all the participants for your contribution. Good. So the cost of this status quo. Well, uh, let me say that when we talk about this kind of requirement, it's a cost, it's a very costly requirement. So we need a massive resource drain. It's these resources that we are talking about, the 65% of time just collecting data that we saw in the poll questions, are dedicated in order to collect the data coming from the different sources. This is time and money. And my question for you is, well, after this effort, do you feel that we are getting the expected result, or we are just making a check in the bureaucratic SOP? Or believe me, are we taking advantage of all those efforts in order to have a more precise and more accurate and more knowledgeable approach to our processes? I think that this is the question that we have to think about, no? This night when we go to sleep this night, please try to remember this question. Are we taking advantage of all the effort that we are doing to prepare this product quality review, or is just a matter of a bureaucratic check? Well, our goal is, or today we're gonna show you, we want to share with you how Agentic AI can cover all these efforts always when you have or you are ready with your data sources. Remember, this is not for free. This is not magic. The only magic is the effort. So considering that you have already everything already in place with comfortable and reliable connections with all your data sources, and all of them, they are under control, they are already validated, and you rely on your systems, on your data collection systems, we can accelerate the AI part. But nowadays, we are doing that every year, every year. Remember that if we transform this effort of 1 year into an automatic system in order to digitalize the process, we will do the effort just once in our life. And this is an investment. This is not a recurrent cost that we will do year after year. Remember the first thought that we got this during the webinar. We are part of the evolution, and we are inside this Moore's law, in this exponential growth, that we have to help, we have to support in some way. Maybe, Kevin, you can explain a little bit which kind of architecture we are talking about in order to figure out how to create this kind of structure or this kind of layout in terms of data connectivity and data connection.
Absolutely. So obviously, starting at the top here, we have kind of represented in this top left box our data sources. Traditional data sources, you have, your QMS, ERP, LIMS, EBR, SCADAs, historians, what have you. And this is actually kind of representative of, we have our Azon, we're a SaaS company, software as a service. So our software lives in the cloud. So some core benefits of this is that that's kind of representative of the site, but you can have multiple sites feeding into this architecture. So it's not just an APQR for one product, one site, but you can scale that across sites and products. Um, but we have what we call our unified layer, where it does exactly what the name says. It's about unifying the data, and this is where the magic of the contextualization occurs. We have, different methods to contextualize that data and bring it together. Um, Now at the bottom, that it is critical to state that it's not just about, as I stated earlier, just simply meeting the reporting requirements, but you can leverage this data foundation that you're building. You could call it a contextual data fabric, if you will. Once you have that contextual data fabric built, you can deploy and build AI applications on top of that. Um, and in the top right here, you have a sample set of applications where the core is your APQR, but you can have beyond that. If you have the contextualized data from your batch, like Tony was describing, if you know everything about that batch, well, you can then tie that into your environmental monitoring. What was the all of the different sensors, all the humidity? What were the room conditions while that batch was being produced? So you could then contextualize the phase of the batch that was produced in that particular room and contextualize that with your environmental data and see trends like you see on the bottom of that unified box there, where you can start to do batch comparisons, actually visualize a golden batch as well relative to your current batches that were part of your APQR. But I think then another great benefit of a system like this is when you have a digital system and it's automated, then integrating that with your own document management system. Maybe you have a very particular methodology that you use, a Word document template that you have to adhere to. Well, a digital system with proper API and data export capability can be properly integrated with that, and you can export uh, templatized data packages to feed your own template so that you don't have to do that manual copy paste every time as well. So really, this is kind of representative of a complete contextual data foundation on which you can build applications like APQR. But that's just the beginning. And obviously, I think a lot more can stem from the same type of data.
Mhm. Good point. So actually, we have several questions in the chat. Some of them they are asking about how to use agentic AI if not all the data has been contextualized. So we will see now that or maybe during the demo, but just advancing the answer. No, the idea is that we will see from a regulatory perspective that when we use this kind of LLMs and agentic AI systems, the idea is that this output that we will get from the AI mechanisms, these advanced LLMs and agentic AI mechanisms, we cannot use directly to fill the report. So humans will have always to review. And part of this human interaction with the systems are this prompt engineering, this prompt actions that Kevin will share with us very soon. But we describe or we include in the prompting, in the text that we are describing, or we are making the questions, or we are interacting with the agentic AI mechanism, we describe perfectly the context of use and the intended use. So the two things, the two aspects must be part of the prompt or the initial starting conversation that we will have with the agentic AI. So for this reason, I was mentioning the previous example about when my batch in the filling line starts, when the first unit is entering over the final, when the first unit totally packetized is exiting from the line. These kind of things are part of the prompt. So you have to specify all this kind of context if you want that the agentic AI system also applies the context to the data. So remember, humans, we are very good identifying these kind of things. The AI system or the agentic AI mechanisms, they have a foundation coming from standards, LLMs, maybe OpenAI, Cloud, they can use Llama. There are plenty of them, but they are generic. So you have to prepare this generic ground with the specific conditions that you want to train your own system, your agentic mechanism. And it's important that you understand that there is not any kind of prepared AI model that you can use directly. You always will need to make some fine tuning. You always will need to interact a lot of times in order to make better this prompting, in order to be sure that the agentic AI is understanding what you are doing in the proper context that you are looking for. So as part of your prompt engineering, you have to include all those documentation, all those instructions very clearly defined, and you have to automatize and standardize that as part of your SOPs when you interact with the Agentic AI. Agentic AI, they will interact with the data based on your own procedures, on your own methodology and instructions. So the answer is yes, agentic AI can create this contextualization by themselves, but you need to specify and to very clearly define how this contextualization must be performed, because otherwise these agentic AI mechanisms, they will do in any way by themselves. So it's important that you do that using the full context, the ICHQ7, in order to specify how the PQR must be performing, which kind of things they have to combine, which kind of rules you are applying in order to contextualize data coming from different mechanisms or different systems. All these things, they must be part of your prompts. We will see that in the example. So based on this approach, so remember, this is not for free. So this is not easy or not magic. So when you are an AI expert as a user, not as a builder of AI, when you are an AI user that is a subject matter expert, you need to interact a lot of times with your agentic AI system. You have to train them. You have to apply a standard operational procedure. You have to apply methodology in order to be sure that every single thing that agentic AI is doing for you is following the expected rules that you have already planned. So it's not just having the perfect result at the first time. No, you have to work a lot. So for the reason, how agentic AI works or solves the problem is in these three layers. So first of all, data must be ready and you have to rely on the data. So if the data is not cleaned, if your systems are not properly contextualized or tagged, and you cannot access to the data in a very easy way in weeks, that means that you are not ready. When you have everything connected, your agentic AI system can access in just minutes to the data based on your instructions. The goal is that you create your template based on this paper template that someone was asking at the beginning. You can transform your paper-based product quality review report into a template, and you can ask to your agentic AI systems to reproduce the same format. Okay, so they will recognize the headers, the fields that they are numeric, which kind of values they are coming from the electronic batch record, which kind of values are coming from the limbs, and so on. But you have to specify very well in a procedural way and a methodological way the steps that you want to apply. Finally, this 20% that we are dedicating in order to transform the data and the information into knowledge, this is probably the easier part. is how to apply AI or multivariate approach in order to transform this raw data and informational graphics into real knowledge for finally improve our processes. So this is how we're transforming months into minutes. But behind these minutes, we need to prepare very well these standard procedures and this methodology to act consequently on the process. Here, maybe Kevin has more experience because he is very hands-on, and maybe you can explain how to do that in a real way with Agentic AI.
Absolutely. Yeah, I kind of view it as, like Tony was saying, you have your template creation, and then once you have a template, you have to populate the template. So to me, it's, well, the human has to go through and manually gather all this data, and then you have to say, now I have a template. Now, where are these other source elements at my new site or my new product? So for those two paths, Agentic AI certainly helps. It can help you define that template, as Tony was saying, but the context is extremely important. The prompt. Do you have SOPs? Do you have, PFDs we can put in there? What context can we provide to help it create that optimal template? Maybe you have old templates that you want it to use as a reference. So that is certainly one way. And then on the population of data, it's now I have my template. Let's keep this static. Now leveraging agentic to say, let's navigate this whole field of data elements and give me my baseline data model that should be feeding this. Now that's a huge task, and that's where the human in the loop is critical. So then you have to go through and be sure, okay, are these sensors the ones I truly want here, and do they align with the SOPs? So it's critical to use agentic where we're putting in our most efforts and then reduce those efforts, but then put more effort into the review aspect because you'll have plenty more time to actually review. And so it's really about, and then being able to use natural language to be able to perform these agentic tasks is a huge accelerator because now you don't necessarily need to be a programmer in order to be able to program these things. You can get a starting point in a much, much more rapid time.
Mhm.
And once again, the templates, I would emphasize this again. I think the agentic aspect is it's crucial for template development and then the population. So you don't want APQR. This is a very big quality audience. We don't want to develop a brand new template every time. You don't want to say just produce the PQR every time. You want to, as Tony mentioned, structure your prompts. You have very well structured prompts and you allocate time to building that template. And then you freeze that template and then you focus your efforts. How do I automatically populate this template now? How to ensure it's scalable? What if I add a new product? What is my methodology to get that data in a digital format and properly route it to that template? And then how do I keep that template and that product that's populated there separate from another product? I don't want to override it. So you need to have these proper systems and controls in place on top of your agentic systems as well.
Mhm. Good point. Remember that with this kind of agentic AI systems, we are trying to delegate into machines, into robots. Let me say logical robots. We want to delegate on them this kind of cognitive action that the humans we are doing, and we are a little bit lazy. We are not very good, let me say in that way, because we have to repeat every year the same for all the products that we have in the company, and this is a very tough work. So we can delegate this kind of tasks into AI systems, and we can take advantage of finally the rationale that we are getting in order to transform this information into knowledge. So this is the final goal. So we can templatize, we can create these templates, we can improve the templates in order to be more generic or more standard, in order to be more understandable for AI systems. This is our task as a humans, as providing good value, not only to our companies, remember, to the patients, because the final goal is to improve the processes in order to have safety and quality products every year and more safe and more accurate products. So the only way is to have this continuous improvement, and where we can help is delegating these mechanic tasks into AI systems. So once you have connected all the data sources and you can collect or you can access to the data sources through your agentic AI mechanism, you have to make the procedure, you have to establish the methodology in your prompting in order to be sure that based on your rules, based on your contextualization, based on your metadata, you are uh, specifying or you are guiding to the agentic AI mechanism in order to create this standard procedure, execution procedure, in order to transform this data that is spread around the factory into something that is fitting in your template. So you validate the template and you will work very hardly in order to have a very robust template. But this template will be gold because you will create this template once in your life, and the mechanism and the agentic AI will populate everything, and also will do all these calculations in order to detect anomalies or to detect trends or to detect patterns. This is the goal. So we are reducing time from days to minutes because we have done previously this effort in order to get everything connected or access to all the data. We will rely on the data and we have already validated the template. Okay. So again, is of course is a benefit for our companies because this is we're working for business, of course. So every minute that we dedicate once in our life to our company in order to improve the process, in order to automatize the process, is something that is a very nice investment because we won't do the same again next year. So it's a very good investment, and you can transform your department uh, like a non-cost department. You can transform your department in a profit department. So usually quality, people that we work for quality for all our life, we have listened a lot of times that compliance and quality were cost in the company. No, nowadays we can transform this classical view into quality and compliance is a profitable department because we will improve our processes. We will include this kind of rationale in the process in order to be more accurate, and any batch will be rejected in the future. So only for that, it's worth it. But even more, the original aiming, the original goal that the regulatory regions they established at the beginning was that the final goal of the product quality review was to improve the quality of the drugs that we put in the market, thinking always in the patients, thinking always in a higher quality and safety for them. This is the final goal. But nowadays we have the tool. So the tool is there and the techniques are there. So technology is there. So we're part of this Moore's law. The only thing that we have to do is adopt it, is nothing else. So before to go to the real use case in order to show you how that looks like in real life, we would like to ask you for a third full question. It is the last for the webinar, and the question is: if you could significantly cut down your annual product quality review cycle time, what would be the biggest benefit for your company? Is in that sense that I was mentioning, so you would be able to transform this view that quality and compliance we have from a cost to a benefit perspective, or do you think that really the company can get benefit of this digitalization and automatization process? They can get benefit because they will use the human effort into something real valuable and not doing the same every year for all the products. So here you have 4 potential answers.
Mhm. One thing I think is interesting about APQR, automated APQR projects, Tony, is that they involve the highest number of data source systems. So, like a real-time monitoring application, you may only need like a historian, maybe some
Mhm.
batch context. But PQR, you're talking limbs, QMS. I need my batch record. So, is it paper? Is it digital? And then, so usually it's like 5 to 7 systems that I've seen historically. So one of the big benefits I've seen is just you have a lot more of your data centralized and contextualized. So then the opportunities for additional applications become very vast. It's not just limited to your process data. It's much broader and much more contextualized. So the sky becomes the limit. Yeah.
A very good point. Actually, I think that you are answering now the last question that we have in the panel coming from Narayankar. Once you have done the effort, as Kevin said, once you have made this effort, you can transform this effort not only for product quality review, you can transform that in many of outputs. For example, for continuous process verification. So you can monitorize on real time everything. So believe me, the benefit is exponential. The effort is just one time effort. Good. So we have already the answers. I think that we have a winner. So more time for actual process improvement and quality monitoring. And the second winner is cost and resource savings for the quality team. Okay. Well, I think that with that, you have enough material to go to your managers and to ask for resources in order to digitalize all the processes, because you can convince them, believe me. And remember that nowadays, for the companies, they also want to expand the value of humans, and the chief executive levels and at that level, they also want to avoid repetition. They also want to maximize and augment the value of humans into the value of the companies. So I think that if you use these arguments, you will have the money in order to invest for this kind of one-time effort for digitalizing your processes. Good. Thank you so much for sharing again your thoughts. I hope that you have now enough materials to go to the C-level and your management to ask for money for digitalizing your processes. Good. So now, again, linked with the last question, we're going to show how we work from a static and annual review to a continuous quality monitoring. Believe me, once you have everything already connected, please don't use it only for product quality review. You can use the same infrastructure for everything. So you are transforming your departmental company, your segmented company, into a completely matrix company. So all the departments will be connected in real time, and you can transform and you can apply a lot of different AI systems on top of that, transforming this incoming data in plenty of outputs. For example, based on the scheduling, how much raw material do we have? Do we have enough raw material? Do we have enough packaging material to fill the next campaigns? Which is the perfect shift for this kind of products? We are working with this emergency. Which is the best configuration based on equipment, material, and shift in order to get the first result? Does it make sense to have stability for 3 weeks if we have enough data from years in order to guarantee that this material is enough stable in 3 days? So these kind of things are real when you transform your incoming data into something that is real-time decision. In terms of regulation, let me go fast. In terms of regulation, here you have plenty of different guidelines coming from the regulators where they are pushing to the manufacturing industry in order to be modernized. So we have a mandate. We need to modernize our sector, and AI is the perfect tool. So probably you think, well, is the Agentic AI allowed because the Annex 22 is explicitly forbidden the use of LLMs? Let me put a real example. Imagine the following situation. You are a sponsor and you delegate, you subrogate as product manufacturing to a CMO. The CMO can create the product, they will produce the products, and the CMO can prepare the draft for the product quality review. It's the CMO that has the data access. The CMO can prepare this product quality review, but finally is the sponsor who is the final accountable for the product quality review. So it's the same. You can ask to Agentic AI that fill all the data that has been already validated in this template that has been already validated, fills everything just in minutes, making the conclusions, applying a multivariate analysis in order to improve the processes, but you will be involved since the beginning, not at the end. The human in the loop means that you are controlling the full process from the prompt engineering, the fine-tuning in the prompt, the interaction with agentic AI systems, controlling when the data is inside the data that you are using for training, the model itself, and finally the output. So human in the loop means that we are along the full process. In the same way that a CMO can prepare the draft, but finally the sponsor is the final accountable. So it's the same example. So we have this mandate for modernization. FDA is requesting that since 2020. Also, the European Medicine Agency is also requesting this modernization. Well, finally, the last slide before to go to the real life. We will show you how Agentic Studio works in Azon in order to show you real use cases. But we are using, we would like to use this kind of sentence coming from Andres Kasparsky. He said that the hosted new programming language is not Python or Visual Basic or C++, or the new programming language is English. And you will see why. So I'm stopping now my screen, and you will see how Kevin is programming in English, in direct English.
It's a major shift. I love it. Let's see. Share. Can you see this window now, Tony?
I can see you.
Okay.
Yes. If you can make it bigger,
Perfect. And all right.
good.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the end product first, the template that Tony and I were talking about that you could use Agentic to create, and then it's a populated template as well for a sample product. So this is in the Azon software at the moment, and we have selected the PQR application. Let me get to it here. And we're going to run this. So now you can see here, talking about the foundation. Tony mentioned CPV. We also mentioned environmental monitoring, PQR, general trends. So this is an example kind of solution suite where PQR is just one component of it because of what we were talking about before, is you have that full foundation. So here where you can select your site and product. So we have the penicillin product, and we're going to choose the APQR we want, and you can see the batches that are actually covered in the report, and then you can go down to get your general information about it, executive summary in the report, various input materials, packaging materials. So a lot of information from different systems coming from ERP. Then you get into more process control. What are the IPCs? You see the fermentation pH there. No issues were identified, and then you can also input the remarks here. Out of spec, kappa, process changes. You see there's one update to the shaking speed range here and the process change, and then you have stability monitoring. I know that was a topic today. Environmental and utilities. So you can see this is the kind of template that Tony and I were talking about, that you could actually automate the creation of this template from the get-go. And this is an interesting one because now this is an example where most PQRs, you're not going to see trends at the batch level. Sometimes you would output the trend for a particular batch, but often it's looking at maybe a CQA over time across batches. Here's an example where you could actually double click into a batch and see a particular phase, the temperature for that batch. Now here's another one, you're looking across samples. So what sample numbers for these three different batches? And then your CPK, PPK, all that type of analysis, general statistics about it. So all of this can be can then be properly captured into this template. And you saw that that was a populated template where you could actually choose the product and site. So now that was the end product. So now, as Tony mentioned, let's actually see the studio here. Um, so this is actually kind of got your traditional. Can you see the studio, Tony? Because I switched.
Yes.
Perfect. This is very similar to many type of of these new LLM type applications, like a Chat GPT. You have library on the left, you have your different apps, you can start a new chat, and you can see that we have one created blank Azon app with modern design. So it's just a blank app. Um, so at the moment, what we want to do is we're just selecting one of the prior app that we had built. So this is going to be, let's take this app and let's actually view it in the studio and let's edit it here in the studio. So you can see very similar interface. You can see your different widgets here, and now you're actually in the studio where you could begin to edit this. But I just wanted to show you this in the studio itself. Very similar feel. And you can then publish this and it would actually be published to the cloud and you can have access controls for others to see. But let me show very quickly the this guy here. Here we go. So now to show you kind of this natural language, like the prompt engineering that Tony was talking about. So this is actually to get to the app. So it was this one prompt. And this is the key that Tony was mentioning here is it's all about it's as good as the prompt. I mean, we are being not super specific here. I mean, we did a little bit of prompt engineering. You can see that we're requesting very specific things like regulatory instability. We want tables for changes to manufacturing process and overview. So we're being very specific with titles. We wouldn't have to be. We could see what the system would actually output as a title, but you can be as specific as you want here. Um, and so now what it's doing is there's I think one of these applications like our technical lead said with one prompt it produced the entire backend structure, thousands of lines of code, produced the full application. And then the human, you need to be ensure that you map the data elements properly to the template that you design. So here it's building the backend, it's creating the source code. I'll fast forward a bit here. You can see it's churning. It's creating the global CSS, the styles for the application, that deep blue color that we had recommended, and then it's going to build us a summary of the application. So you can see three drop downs. It's giving us a summary, you know, it's giving us the design specs. We have the manufacturing site, data selection, data sections. We have the summary, the material review. It tells us what visualizations we have here, and so on. And then we can keep going with this. And then you actually get to, so let's approve these changes. So this is, we exported the application, we've done some changes, and now you can republish this. And you can see this is going to what's called our sales sandbox here. Um, so now this is a view where you have kind of your summary in the middle, your actual application viewer on the right side, and all of the different summary and assessment there that we viewed before. And now each of these sections, I would like to emphasize you can continue to edit. Like I'll pause here. I'm not, there's like a, if you can see my cursor, there's like a smart select. So any of these particular sections you can actually edit specifically. You know, I could select just the kappa status overview table, and we could request filtering capability in that table. Or you could request a language dropdown and request what languages you want to include. So there's many, really the sky is the limit here. So you ask it and you can and see what you can get. You can see there's temperature trends, pH, process control, SPC charts, and the process capability analysis. The good thing here is in 5 minutes, it produced a full-blown template, whereas most traditional programmers would, to produce this kind of app, it would definitely take some time. I mean, we're talking weeks of work. So now you have the ability to actually, you know, iterate with this prompt and vibe code and natural language English. So, um, yeah, so that's the demo, and I guess we can take some questions. I think we have about 5 minutes here.
I'm trying to answer some questions we have in the chat. Meanwhile, but of course, one of the most repeated question is how we can use that in GXP environments. Of course, the product quality review is a GXP object, so the final report must be validated. So remember that we were talking about a template, and the template that Kevin was using or was passing to the Agentic AI in order to be filled is part of the chain. So it's not the final output. So we have to always, when you do that manually, when you call to the IT department for the spreadsheet that contains all the batches for this product, you have to rely, because it has been already validated, that the data that you are using are coming from the right systems. So the full chain has been validated. So Agentic AI is not the final output. It's just as an accelerator. Remember that we are working, or we are sharing with you the Agentic AI, the Agentic Studio, as part of this acceleration from days to minutes. But it's not the final goal, the final output. So it's an accelerator. So everything works as always. So we have to have already validated the data sources, the digital transition between the source of truth to the agentic AI system, the collection of data, in the same way that you are doing today with your data hub, your data lake, or your Unify, or whatever. So you are also always validating and ensuring the data integrity from the source of truth to this true copy of the system, in the same way that you are calling to your IT department asking for the batches. After that, you have your own SOPs that has been validated, and in these SOPs you describe how to do this PQR. Imagine that you transform these SOPs into English or instructions or guidelines or rules that you share with your agentic system. You are using the same SOP. The only difference is that you are not reading the SOP for yourself. You are sharing your SOP with the agentic AI. Agentic AI can reuse by themselves. And finally, you are using the template that you have already validated, and the agentic AI is establishing the link between all the data sources with your template. And if you have already configured in this way, the agentic AI can determine in a multivariable way which kind of anomalies they can identify, how to improve, because we can identify patterns of the best batches or the bad batches. All these things can be done in a very systematic way because it's AI at the end. The most important thought that we would like to share with you is that we cannot stop the progress. So we have to get the bus because we are immersed in this exponential Moore's law that in any way is coming. So we have all the tools are already there. They are democratic. They are transparent. Everyone is using, and we can reuse also to improve the benefit for patients.
And
I
just I see one more question about predictive tools. I would say, in a way, the Agentic Studio is a kind of a predictive tool in that it's producing using AI the applications. But Tony and I have talked on many occasions about like Azon, we're AI company at heart, and we're all about predictive technology. So I do think there's many applications on the predictive side that we have not even covered today. But basically, any kind of predictive model that could be built from the data foundation we discussed today is feasible. We do a lot of deviation predictions, golden batch prediction, yield prediction, for predictions for predictive maintenance, batch failures, and things like that. So that could be an entirely separate session.
Right. I've seen also 1 minute left. Maybe we can take another question. So we have so many great questions here. Maybe we can take some of them, think about uh, the next webinar to do around it. But a great question that I've seen also in the chat is how do we make sure that the QA professionals are not replaced by AI, right? But rather, how do they work alongside it? So, what is your perspective here also in terms of career? Do you think that the QA professionals will still get to keep their job down the line in 2 to 5 years? How their jobs will change?
Well, actually, do you remember in the old times when people was working in this chain of manufacturing, like Charlie Chaplin? So we have evolved from that time because machines has replaced humans, but believe me, the humans now we are doing better jobs. So quality and compliance teams, they will evolve with more statistical knowledge, with more AI knowledge. And this kind of prompt engineering will be like an art. Nowadays it's an art. Tomorrow will be a methodology. And the idea is that we will very good as our humans to define this kind of prompt engineering, this English programming, in order to establish their perfect rules with the perfect context and the perfect intended use. So we will evolve in this way.
Yeah, that's excellent, right? So it's, as you say, it's inevitable. It will be there. We need to do something.
Yes.
So it will be there, and you need to flow with this and understand how to use these tools. And at the end of the day, from many people that I've spoken to, they see that at the end of the day, the person will still be there because the final reviews need to be there and the control and the prompt engineering, as you say. So the QA's job will be more, as you said, in the great poll that we had, right? So people said if they could save the time, what would they do? So they would take the time and not just, dig into paper, but they will go and improve processes. They will maybe work more with people, right? So it will change the work a bit in a good way.
Yeah. And
I would just,
may I, sorry, Kevin. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'll quickly add, I think it just means human in the loop is more important than ever
Yeah.
because you certainly wouldn't want to say, oh, I relied on a program and now everything, there could be a lot of problems with that. So it just means your job is even more important to do the proper review.
Yes. And remember that we are just in the peak of the iceberg. We are in this moose low, so we have to run. We have to be fast in the adoption because the new AI that is coming is overwhelming. So we have to be ready step by step, but
Mhm.
fast.
Thank you again for doing this with us. Looking forward for our next webinar. Um, Probably will be in, I don't know, like 3 4 months. And thanks also, of course, for our amazing audience that show up and stayed with us for 90 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all
See
so
you.
much.
Bye.
Thank you also on this note. Goodbye.